put the league in that position. You know, we count on them to be the leaders of the team and, you know, leaders of the offense. And those guys made a mistake, and that is disappointing. You know, obviously I haven't done a good enough job of selling the protocols to them, you know, when they're on their own. So, you know, part of that could fall on me.
A practice squad receiver played quarterback, Max Kellerman. Was it unfair to make the Broncos play like this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Stephen A. brought this up all the time, right, over the last several months. Who didn't want the bubble? Who resisted it? If players are saying, no, we don't want to go into a bubble, we're going to exercise personal responsibility, then these are the risks you take. If everyone was on the IR, right, and they were just missing a lot of players because of that, would they have to play the game? Or if you don't want to play the game, forfeit the game. That's fine. You can forfeit the game. That's your right. But that's going to be an L. If you your only chance to try to win that game, they don't need to reschedule it, nothing like that, is play and win or take your loss. Hold that L. That's how it goes. Right? I mean, like, this is, Stephen A., this is not that complicated. I know it sounds harsh, but you want to get through the season? Yes or no? We're playing football in the middle of a highly contagious and tricky, disease, a pandemic. So these are the risks you take. And by the way, did someone break protocol in the quarterback room, right, on the Broncos? So hold on a second. It comes down to personal responsibility. If you're the players, you don't exercise any or enough, and then there's a COVID outbreak, you're missing players. The other team should have to forfeit, should have to postpone. No. You play the game, take your lumps, move on. The only way you postpone, Stephen A., is if there's a threat of contagion. If the medical experts say you can't play this game because we're going to transmit the disease, fine, I get it. Postpone. Other than that, you play the game and be, come what may.
Max, I'm not getting into the particulars in terms of, because I totally agree with you about the contagion part. I also agree with you from the standpoint that, look, players had an opportunity to have a bubble. They didn't want a bubble. Here's where we part ways, and I emphatically disagree with you. I'm thinking about the fans in this regard. Max, this is an extreme situation. There are alterations. There are exceptions that are made when extreme circumstances take place. They did not have a quarterback. According to folks in the NFL, the Broncos actually called to try to beg the NFL to allow their quality control coach to come onto the field and play quarterback for them because he knew the playbook. That's how desperate of a situation it was. So you are the New Orleans Saints, and you walk into a game playing against a team that literally, not figuratively, literally has no quarterback. There's nobody to play the position. I would have rather had them, they've been made to forfeit the game than be subjected to that kind of stuff. Because again, you're playing, you still got defensive players, you're still playing a football game. It's still a violent sport. Somebody could ultimately go out there, get themselves hurt, et cetera, et cetera. I understand this kind of stuff comes with it. I get it. But I'm saying that there are extreme circumstances that could take place at a time where you're literally looking at a game and saying, we're really going to play this game. You have a situation where no quarterback was available. And when I heard the news Saturday night, Max, no quarterbacks are available for the Denver Broncos, you know what I actually thought about and tried to speak to the NFL about, but I couldn't get anybody on the phone over the weekend? I actually think that it's gotten to a point where the NFL should halt the season for 2 weeks so everybody could get their ducks in a row, everybody could get their act together, and then come back after that 2-week hiatus and have a bubble kind of atmosphere in their respective cities.
Now you're talking.
And just enforce it for the last month to 6 weeks. That's how bad it was Saturday. You can't, to me, you're cheating the fans, even though there weren't any in attendance, they're watching on TV. When you tell a football team to show up without a damn quarterback, that's extreme. I didn't anticipate that happening.
Stephen A., I think that's a good, if they come back in a bubble, then I agree with you. Because now they've had enough time. You brought this up last week. There's enough time. Okay, you guys didn't have to bubble up and be away from your families for that amount of time. But for a shorter time frame, they did it in the NBA. They did it in Major League Baseball in the playoffs. I'm with that. I support that idea if they come back in a bubble. Otherwise, no, because it's just going to get worse. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. So what's 2 weeks going to do? There are going to be more outbreaks. So I love your idea of a 2-week hiatus followed by a bubble and finish the season that way if you can get the players to agree. But as far as this game went, you talk about they had to play without a quarterback. Why would that be? Why did they have to play without a quarterback? Could it be because the quarterbacks weren't wearing masks and socially distancing? Because that seems to be the reason, for which they apologized, right? So hold on. Now, we know it's a pandemic. We know it's contagious. We know the best way to fight it is socially distance. Wear a mask. Mask is probably number one, according to the data, right? So they let it slip. Then they didn't have a quarterback. What should happen after that? One of two options. Forfeit the game, take the L, or play the game, you risk the injury, and you take the L. They opted to play the game. But either way, the other team should not be punished for their lack of, which I kept hearing before the season, personal responsibility. They didn't take it, they lose. The bubble idea, Stephen A., I'm on board. 2 weeks in a bubble, I'm on board.
I'm certainly not an advocate of those who followed protocol and were ready to play suffering. I get that part. All I'm saying is that there are millions of fans that are watching. We actually do matter too, okay? Even though we're not in attendance, we're watching on our television sets. And if you're living in the city of Denver or you're anywhere in the nation and you're a Denver Broncos fan and you don't have a quarterback, to me, you're not qualified to play the game, period. You should. To me, there's not a game that should take place. If the quarterback position is a position that you're supposed to have fulfilled, obviously so, and you don't have any of your dudes eligible to play, none of them, to me, you shouldn't be playing the game.
So what's the difference? Tell me what the difference is between what happened to the Broncos. Quarterbacks don't wear a mask. They wind up with COVID. They don't have quarterbacks to field, right? And let's say a team where the quarterbacks were riding a motorcycle or something like that, and there was an accident and they all got hurt. They're on the IR. What's the difference? We know that there is a physical danger and that you need to take certain steps to protect yourself and others, and they didn't, and as a result, they weren't available to play. If they had an accident from careless behavior and weren't available to play, we wouldn't talk about postponing the game. They'd have to play without a quarterback, and that's what happened.
Yeah, but you're talking about what we wouldn't talk about. You're not talking about my position, because my position is if you're a football team and you don't have a quarterback, not a quarterback, you don't need to be playing that game. I don't give a damn whether it's a motorcycle accident or COVID-19. If you don't have a quarterback that's been on the roster that's eligible to play, you shouldn't be playing the game, because that's a prime position in the sport of football, period. You don't have a quarterback, you shouldn't be playing.
Practice squad wide receiver in an NFL game only in 2020. Fellas, we've got so much to talk about today, so let's just keep it rolling here, because we also have a really good one tonight. That's Monday Night Football. It's a battle of the birds. Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf lead the Seahawks into Philly to take on Carson Wentz and a desperate Eagles team. I told you my Giants are in first right now. 8 Eastern on ESPN Deportes, in the app. Danny Dimes, get well soon. Speaking of that game, guys, Jalen Hurts takes first-team reps for the first time this year. Should he start? Paging Max Kellerman. And Chi-Town, what is the deal? The Bears blown out by the Packers. Do they finally need a new coach? Is Matt Nagy the one to blame for messing up